Well, hello. Welcome back to Toys Thursday with Johnny Tiger on January 20, 2022. Now, if I set everything up correctly, uh, you should be looking at Japanese kanji character on the back of the special guest of this week, or on the back of the gi that he is wearing. For those of you who know the character, for those of you who know your video game, especially those of you who know the Street Fighter video game, you should already have guessed uh, who we are going to introduce this week. It should come as no surprise because a couple of weeks ago, when I introduced another grandpa that was really, really badass by the name of Jan or Gan, the Chinese assassin, old Chinese assassin, I mentioned that we were going to get around to this character who is not quite Jan's counterpart, but they are kind of associated. So I did say we were going to get around to this guy very soon. And finally, the date is here. And I'm going to tell you of the story of Akuma, one of the most powerful character in the Street Fighter universe, one of the craziest, most powerful, most devastating old geezer who ever walked the earth. I mean, you can line him up with the old geezer from other comic, other cartoon, other video games, and Akuma is usually going to be among one of the most powerful beings, no matter who you compare him up against, unless you throw him into a crazy, uh, overpowered, ridiculously uh, 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 set up like Dragon Ball Z or something like that, where everything can blow up, everyone can seemingly blow up a planet with their finger, then yeah, okay, you put him in there, and he's not really that cool. But anything else, you can take Akuma and put him in with the Marvel superheroes. You can put him in against the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, the mutants, and Batman. Maybe not Superman because Superman is just like quite a few level above that. But you can put him up against most supervillains, superheroes. Um, and Akuma is going to be right at home. He's that powerful. So who is this guy? Who is Akuma? And this week, let's delve into his uh, rather plain, straightforward, a little bit boring, but definitely uh, hardcore background. Akuma roughly translates from Japanese would mean the devil. The devil. Obviously, that's not his true name. I mean, who's going to be called the devil? Uh, that obviously a name that he earned like a nickname just to show how badass he is. His true name is Gouken. What does Gouken mean? The great devil. So you see, no matter how you slice it, his real name, his nickname, he's just very demonic, uh, kind of a guy. And he did not disappoint. He did not. Totally lived up to that name. When he was young, Gouki and his brother Gouken. I mean, their parents weren't very creative. Anyway, Gouki and his older brother Gouken studied under the martial art master Getetsu, which Getetsu basically translates to uh, the Iron Fist guy, the Iron Hand. Uh, So Gotetsu was a master of uh, uh, a special kind of martial art, like the Ansatsuken. That's what it was called, Ansatsuken. Uh, it, it's basically this martial art that is a combination of karate and taekwondo and judo and kung fu, and it's supposedly very ancient, very devastating. By the way, don't go out there and try to learn the Satsuma because it's doesn't exist. Um, it's a make-believe martial art. So anyway, Gotetsu was the master of Ensasaken. Ensasaken uh, is a very powerful martial art. However, to be able to explore the full potential of Ensasaken, the user have to be willing to kill and be willing to do the most damage to his or her opponent, which means they have to embrace this special power called Sasui no Hado. Uh, I'm just going to try to simplify this so it's not going to bore a lot of you who's not into the whole video game and terminology thing. So imagine you are learning this ancient style of karate, karate, and it's called Ensatsuken. But you can't get really good at it unless you're willing to kill your opponent and unless you're willing to embrace this the dark side, like in Star Wars, basically the dark side of the Force. You're willing to embrace this demonic force. Okay, so straightforward. Uh, Gotetsu was unwilling to fully embrace the dark side. So even though he was really good at what he was doing, he was never going to be perfect. From an early age, Gouken, the older of the two students, the older brother Gouken, decided that Sasuke was too brutal a martial art. He decided there should be more to martial art than just killing and fighting. He believed that martial art should have discipline and mercy and kindness and fitness and therapeutic. Okay, I just added those last two in there myself. But anyway, you get the idea. So Gouken decided there should be more to martial art. So he decided to go away and study and try to figure things out for himself. So he left. His younger brother, Gouki, who later became Akuma, just in case you forgot, his younger brother, Gouki, who was a lot more serious, decided that his brother was wrong. Gouki believed everything that their master was teaching them. And even more, Gouki believed that their master was not doing his best to embrace the dark side. Gouki believed that him alone knew what Sasuke was really about. Like so many arrogant young people who believe that they know everything. But unfortunately, in this case, Gouki really did know everything as far as Sasuke went. Um, so after studying and learning everything Gotetsu had to teach him, Gouki decided to go away himself and go challenge some of the most capable fighters he could find in the world and uh, perfect his own technique. While he was away from his master, he fully embraced the dark side for the first time. And, uh, well, long story short, he became better than Gotetsu could ever wish to be at the art of Ensatsuken. Believing that his master has disgraced their martial art by refusing to embrace the dark side fully, the now very accomplished Gouki, aka Akuma, returned to the dojo and challenged his master to a fight. During the fight against his master, he unleashed his own brand of the ultimate technique, and this technique has a really scary name called the Raging Demon. Now, let me segue into the Raging Demon for a second because the Raging Demon as a martial art technique really showcases just how exceptionally scary Akuma is as a fighter. You see, most other fighters, uh, they can punch really hard, they can kick really hard, they can move really fast, jump really high. And some fighters, especially when we are going into the Street Fighter uh, video game category, They can do supernatural things like shoot lightning or throw fireball or cause earthquake, uh, things like that. Okay, that's basically what most other fighters can do in that world. Akuma's ultimate technique, the Raging Demon, essentially is him suddenly appear in front of you, grabbing you, and then hit your spirit. Take note, he doesn't hit you, he hits your spirit. He attacked your spirit with all 16 levels of hell. So he essentially, once he grabbed a hold of you, he put your soul through 16 different kind of torture hell can unleash. Uh, so what those 16 levels are, I don't know, but it sounds really scary. Okay, so essentially when he grabbed the hold of you with the raging demon technique, he destroyed you from the inside out. He destroyed your spirit, your soul, and caused your body to die. Uh, so yeah. Anyway, scary dude. He used the raging demon on his own master and killed his own master in single combat. Just around that time, his older brother Gouken just happened to drop in to say hi to the old master and chit chat to see what's up with things. Uh, Gouken dropped in just in time to see Gouki taking the prayer beads from the neck of their fallen master, putting it around his own neck, essentially declaring to the world that now him, Akuma, aka Gouki, is a true master of Ensasaken. In a fit of rage, Gouken attacked him, uh, but Akuma was able to uh, walk away. Many years later, now we fast forward to many years later, when Gouken has now taught his two students, the main character, the main hero of the Street Fighter game, Ryu and Ken, uh, when Gouken has taught them, one day Akuma appeared at their dojo and challenged him to a fight. Uh, That time, Gouken was able to defeat Akuma, but when Akuma asked him to kill him, Gouken refused because, Gouken, the older brother, was always kind and gentle and merciful. He didn't believe in killing, and he's the guy that believes that there should be more to martial art. Akuma laughed in his face and told him that he would regret his weakness before walking away. Akuma's words would came true a few years later when he once again returned and challenged his brother to a second fight. Well, actually a third fight because they did fight when he murdered his own master. So anyway, he returned again and challenged Gouken to another fight. This time he defeated Gouken again using the Raging Demon technique on his own brother. Um, Akuma thought that he had killed Gouken. Actually, well, the rest of the world, we all thought he had killed Gouken. It wasn't until much later that we realized that Gouken had survived by uh, essentially using some weird technique to empty his own soul away from, basically make his own soul leave his body, so the raging demon wouldn't destroy his soul. All he did was put him in a coma. Uh, but anyway, that's something that came a lot later down the line. Doesn't really have any bearing on our biography today. After defeating uh, Gouken, uh, of course, Gouken's student Ken and Ryu tried to avenge their master by challenging Akuma to a fight. Uh, but even though both of them were very good martial artists in their own right, Akuma defeated them almost without any effort. Then from this point on, onwards was when Akuma's life sort of became a little bit one-dimensional. After defeating his own master, or killing his own master, defeating his own brother, Akuma essentially wandered around the world looking for a fighter that would be strong enough to kill him. I mean, this is at the same time so ridiculously stupid, but I mean, it's a fighting video game, so we can't be too, we can't expect too much about how intelligent the story has to be. But it's such a stupid thing to look for in your lifetime. Someone strong enough to kill you. But at the same time, it sort of illustrates just how crazily badass Akuma is as a character. I mean, he's so badass that his only wish in life was to run into someone who could kill him in battle. Um, he wandered the world, eventually came into contact with another old fighter named Jen, and this is when we come full circle. Akuma and Jen fought each other, and he was so impressed that Jen was able to survive his raging demon technique. This little Chinaman, little old Chinaman, was able to survive his raging demon technique. However, he soon realized that Jan wasn't fighting at his best because Jan was suffering from cancer at the time. So Akuma decided to walk away and let Jan live rather than continue to fight. And from this incident and many others, we actually see that despite Akuma's uh, tendency to come across as heartless, and he wants everyone to think he's the ultimate badass. He wants everyone to think that he is ruthless and without mercy. He has a very peculiar code of honor. He never fight anyone who's clearly weaker than him, and he never fight anyone who is suffering from a handicap or a disability. Um, a lot of time, even when he fights somebody, Akuma will intentionally hold back, such as one time when Ryu, the hero of the story, came to challenge him on his island. Uh, Even though it looked like Ryu won the fight, and then it's not until after the fight that we realized that Akuma was holding back the whole time. He wasn't going full out. Uh, so a lot of time Akuma only go as hard as necessary to achieve his goal, either to test himself or test the opponent. He very rarely make opponents suffer unnecessarily. He very rarely go out of his way to kill his opponent. So this kind of lead us to believe he really wasn't wanting to kill his master, but he realized that unless he used the raging demon technique, he wasn't going to be able to beat his master. That is one of the things that I speculate about Akuma. Um, it's just uh, it's quite interesting how many people he's fought, but other than a very select few, he really never murdered anyone. Um, and that's crazy when you think about this is a guy who can do some crazy, crazy things. One of the things that he did was destroy an entire island with one single punch. Yeah, that's crazy, right? I mean, this is a guy who can destroy an island with one punch. And yet, most of the guy he fought survived. So obviously, he has a very strong sense of honor in there somewhere. Now, there was one character that Akuma kind of went out of his way to mess with. I mean, I'm not even counting Ryu because, yes, Akuma did constantly provoke Ryu into fighting him throughout the story, but he did that for a very peculiar reason. He did that because he believed that Ryu was the only person in this world who might have the power to kill him if Ryu would embrace the dark side. So he provoked Ryu because he wanted Ryu to get to be as strong as him or stronger than him. That's a little bit different. There is a kind of a weird logic there, but there is a logic. There is another character who Akuma would try to kill whenever he get a chance, and this was a criminal overlord, Master Bison, the big bad of the Street Fighter storyline. For those of you who don't know, so Master Bison is this crazy guy who had this massive criminal underworld and wanted to take over the Earth. You know, basically like your very generic supervillain. And he he magnified his power by stealing chi from other fighters. So Master Bison is very scary strong as well, very powerful. But he didn't get it from training. He got it from stealing energy from other fighters. The first time they met, uh, Master Bison actually defeated Akuma. That was a very few times when Akuma suffered a defeat at the hand of somebody. Uh, but that it that was because Akuma underestimated Master Bison. Uh, Akuma hit him with the Raging Demon ultimate technique, thinking that I was going to be that, not knowing that it wasn't going to work on Master Bison, because at that point in the story, Master Bison didn't have a soul. He was so evil that he actually got rid of his own humanity, got rid of his own soul, so he could be the ultimate killer. So obviously, the Raging Demon, which was a technique designed to destroy someone's soul, didn't work on Master Bison, so that gave him an opening to defeat a very surprised and shocked Akuma. However, the next time they met, the outcome was very different. The next time they met, because of a few complications in the story that we are not going to go into, but because of a few reasons, Master Bison had to uh, merge with his own soul to continue living. Uh, so when he did that, and he ran into Akuma again. Akuma hit him with the Raging Demon technique again, and this time totally obliterated, totally destroyed him, soul and body and everything. Like there was nothing of him left. Now, Master Bison did get resurrected a few more times because he had this weird technology like a Lazarus pit that every time he gets destroyed, he can come back in another body. It's really weird, really complicated. We won't go into much of that. But anyway, every time Akuma got a chance, if every time he ran into Master Bison, he tried to destroy him, and it just uh, seemed like kind of weird. That neither of them very nice guy, but Akuma just hated Master Bison. I think it's because Akuma got all his power from hard, honest training, while Master Bison all he ever did was steal chi energy from other people. Now, all that, of course, definitely classified Akuma for the badass grandpa that is fitting for our series. Uh, and he is of grandpa's age because most of the time when you see him, depending on which part of the storyline, he's anywhere between 60 to 80 years old. So he is not a young guy. He's pretty old. Um, but uh, definitely one of the most powerful character in the whole Street Fighter character roster. Now that we talked about the character backstory, the biography, uh, I want to talk a little bit about the character as he appeared in the video game. Um, in some ways, Akuma is one of those characters that I both love and hate. Okay, I love his character design. He's this older guy, super muscular. I mean, look at him. This guy is just bulging with muscles. I wish I looked that good in the gi. And that gi is old, tattered, with ripped and torn, like the sleeves are torn off and the edges are really ragged. His pant leg, his uh, the the side of his gi. This is someone who just gone through a lot of battle, uh, and He's so badass. He doesn't even wear a martial art belt. He just got a rope around his waist to tie his gi close, and then around his neck there's that big giant string of prayer beads, like he's some kind of Buddhist monk. And yeah, he's just like this crazy looking old guy who you take one look at him and you know you don't want to mess with him. Like he's got muscles that make him look like he can crack walnuts in his armpit or something. His hair is kind of all messy and unkempt. Overall, the Akuma is really kind of an unkempt character because remember, his only thing he does his whole life is train, and train. And his only goal in life is to look for someone who's strong enough to kill him. Uh, so, I mean, this is a guy who doesn't go out on dates, doesn't go to the movie, doesn't listen to music, doesn't probably doesn't even have to eat or drink. He's not hardcore. Um, so yeah, his hair is kind of messy. It's a bit of a uh, traditional Japanese top knot there. Depending on the version of the character, the eyes may be red or yellow or black. And this is the thing, I can't really tell you what color my version is because this character has been released with several variations, several color combinations. Some figures have purple gi, some of them have darker purple gi, some of them have red hair, some of them have gray hair, white hair, and some of them have red eyes, some of them have yellow eyes. And the kanji character on the back of his gis apparently are all different. So because I bought this character, I bought this action figure secondhand, which is another kind of a sad story I'm going to talk about in a little bit. So I have no idea which one I actually ended up with. Um, so I love the character because he's a really powerful, really muscular, really badass old guy with a really crazy martial arts skills. So that just totally sit well with me. I hate the character, however, because every time I ran into him when I was playing the Street Fighter game, every time I had to fight him, I felt like I wanted to rage quit and trash the console because he's such a cheap character in in the video game. He's faster than almost everybody. He does more damage than almost everybody, and his attacks can go high or low, and he has the ability to suddenly teleport behind you and grab you and do his raging demon thing. Which, by the way, if you get hit by his raging demon technique, it you die. Even if you have full health points, it will take you down to zero with one hit from the raging demon technique. Um, he's just a really overpowered, annoying character, and that it's bad enough for sighted players because I definitely hear a lot of sighted players complain about him. But for a blind person, he's even worse. You see, if you want to play fighting game versus fighting game like video game, like Street Fighter and Tekken, and Mortal Kombat, if you're totally blind like myself, it is doable. Okay, I talked about this before. It's completely doable. But it takes hours and hours of practice, hours of remembering, memorizing how to execute moves, how to judge distance, and what sound means what, and what characters sound like. What are they saying when they do a certain thing? You got to remember Like when you hear a Hadouken, that means a fireball is coming your way. You better block. When you hear a Shoryuken, that means it's an uppercut, and you better do something about it. Okay, those are just some examples. Akuma, it's so badass that his character either doesn't say anything, or all he does is one single syllable. Like this is one of those characters that no matter what he does sounds the same, either nothing or mm. He just grunt like that. He just makes this sound, no matter what he does. So for a blind person, a blind player, there's no way for you to know what he's up to, no way for you to know what he's doing. Uh, it's immensely frustrating. I totally hated him when I was playing the game. No matter how badass a character he was, I hated him. Luckily, I love his action figure. So yeah, I don't hate his action figure. It's a really well made version of Akuma. Uh, this action figure came out in 2004, so he's definitely old, even in action figure age. And he was made by SOTA, who made some of the best Street Fighter action figures at the time. Uh, Akuma was in the fourth wave of SOTA's Street Fighter action figures, and he was really well done. I mean, the musculature, the articulation, uh, he's not quite as articulated as a martial art master should be. I mean, his shoulders, his elbows, his head, and his waist and thighs and hips and all that move. But he's a little bit stiff, and because of the size of his muscles, there are a lot of poses that he can't get into. Uh, which the real Akuma wouldn't have problem like that. That's, I mean, real Akuma is so badass that he could have big muscles and he could still be really flexible. But not his action figure. This action figure is a little bit static, unfortunately. But it's about 6.5 inches tall, really bulky. Got some impressive muscular details in it. The original figure, I believe, came with two alternate head, two pairs of alternate hands, open palm and closed fist, and an energy effect to go over his hand. However, like I said, I had to buy this second hand, and it's a sad story. Okay, like back in the early 2000s, action figures like this, Akuma, would only cost about $10, 10, $12, maybe $13. Back then, I was so confident that because Soda was doing such a good job with the Street Fighter action figures, I was so confident that they would be making them for a long time to come. I mean, they really did some wonderful things with their action figures. So it was totally shocking when by 2006, SOTA went down the drain. They basically went bankrupt, and Street Fighter action figures were only available on the second-hand market. And by the time I finally tracked down an Akuma action figure, guess how much I had to pay? I ended up having to pay $120 for this guy on the second-hand market. I could have gotten him for $10 if I just bought him when he first was released by SOTA in 2004. But I was so confident that, oh yeah, no hurry, he'll be around, that I ended up regretting it and in a really big way. Um, so yeah, that is a really uh, sad personal experience, and there's a little bit of a moral to the story there too. If you are collecting action figures, sometimes if you see something you really want, something you know is good, you might want to just go ahead and get it. I'm not promoting impulse buy, but sometimes especially in the action figure collecting world, things only ever get more expensive. They don't get cheap. They don't get cheaper. They usually only get more expensive. So, uh, if it's something like this, you just want to get it as quickly as you can, because by the time you have to buy it from the secondary market, it's going to cost 10 times, 20 times more than what it usually was in the beginning. Now, there's a few more exceptional part about this action figure. The gi, the gi top, the rope belt, they're all separate from the actual body, so they're not sculpted on. They're rubber material that's added on later. So, I mean, if you ever wanted, I don't know why you would want to, but if you wanted a topless Akuma, you can actually take those off. Although I don't think you can do it without damaging them. So if you take them off, I don't think they'll go back on. And the necklace, the prayer bead necklace, that is also separate. And you can definitely take that off of the figure if you want your Akuma to go without the necklace. And beyond that, like I said, this character has been released in so many different color variations. Purple gi, black gi, white gi, red eyes, yellow eyes, black eyes, gray hair, red hair. The character, the kanji characters on the back of the gi can be different. So yeah, uh, I heard that some colors are more expensive, more valued than others. Luckily, that really doesn't matter to me because every one of them are on the same body. Every one of them feel the same to me, so I don't have to worry about which color variant I get in the end. Um, Beyond that, I um, I'm not going to fiddle with his articulation too much while on screen because, like I said, he's very old. Well, he is an old character, and this is an old action figure, which means joints might be a bit weak. And like I said, I spent like $120 on this guy, so I'm not going to risk breaking him. Suffice to say, a definite worthy entry into our grandpa's throw down. And even though I would never say this action figure actually worth what I paid for, I only did that because I really liked the character and I wanted him in my collection. Uh, and some of you might be saying that, wow, you paid 120 for this guy. Believe me or not, believe me or not, that's actually on the cheap end. If you go and look on eBay, most of the time this guy is going for $300 or $400 on the secondary market. So when I saw him going down to 120 bucks, I snatched him up right away because of how rare that was. Um, was it a little bit of a impulsive uh, issue I had? Yes, of course, because like I said, this started out as a $10 action figure. Definitely should never have cost that much. But when you really like a character and you want to complete your collection, sometimes it leads you to do some crazy things.